we are in a system where we have to live amongst those who have enslaved us. And at some point, we do have to figure out a way that we can live amongst each other in a peaceful way. But where does that start? How do you begin the process to heal, to understand that the person that that looks at you in a way that's degrading, a person that has enslaved you, you have to understand the mentality of someone like that. You have to understand the mentality of someone like that, why it was done, and why it was necessary for them to strip your identity and for you not to understand the power within yourself. When we try and analyze these things and understand these things, we understand the system that we live in. We understand why they do the things they do. You know, we understand why they value things that we didn't value. We didn't value these things before slavery.
Exactly.
You know, so I think it's hard to do that. It's hard to understand that the system that you're in is not the system when you grew up in it. You know, when you grew up in a system, this is all you really know. This is what you identify with. So to try and separate yourself, to pull yourself away, to really take a look at it and understand how unhealthy it is a very difficult process. Especially when they make it look so good. They make it appear as if it is the best thing on earth. I think it's interesting that, you know, people try and take the angle of race doesn't matter. That's an interesting way to psychologically make someone accept that their position that's been given to them. Why all of a sudden it doesn't matter when you brought us over here as slaves and you used us in a way, so it didn't try and say that race doesn't matter. Lynching is still going on, you know, in Delaware, you know, and this was on YouTube, right? And I'm pretty sure, I know I didn't see it on the news. This man is on YouTube and he's explaining how these white men kidnapped him and tried to lynch him, and they tried to kill him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So he's explaining his in detail about what happened, and then he was able to get away, and someone had called the cops for him, and when they arrived, they did nothing. So how can you convince people that race doesn't matter? How can you do that when you're saying one thing and something else is going on? I think you just need to be mindful and understand that, you know, people will say things and do things to try and manipulate you and try to control you, and you have to be in control of yourself. You have to be able to think for yourself. And you have to be able to have the understanding and the knowledge, so that when you come across this information, when you come across this, you're able to look at it for what it is, and you won't get trapped into thinking that race doesn't matter, because it does matter. But it's easy to convince a group of people that have no identity that race doesn't matter. It's easy to do that. It's easy to fall into that trap. Because where is your identity? Where do you start? Where do you stand? You know? Where do you stand? If you tell me race doesn't matter, then that means your culture, your race matters. That's what you've taught me.
He's always there to brighten up your day. Always there in every way. When it's cold and dreary and your faith is growing weary, you don't have to be afraid. He's always there Just ask for what you need. He'll be there if you believe. Open up your heart, invite him to come in, and he'll turn your life around and change you from within. Waiting to care, he's always there. Ooh, ooh, he's always there to comfort and provide. He's always there right by your side to help you face tomorrow through all the joy and sorrow. His love you can't deny. He's always there. Just ask for what you need. He'll be there if you believe. Open up your heart, invite him to come in, and he'll turn your life around and change you from within. Waiting to care, he's always there. Ooh, hey. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are a-jumping, yeah, and the cotton is high. Woo! Your daddy is rich, yeah, and your mommy's good looking. Well, all right. Woo! So hush, little baby, and don't you cry, yeah. Summertime, and the living is so easy. Summertime, woo.
I noticed that people like to group us all together, in a way to use terms like, we're all the same, we bleed the same, there is no difference, no differences, and we should all get along for these reasons. Okay, yes, we are all human, but let us go back to understanding who we are. If we go back and try and understand where do we start? Where do our history start? Because for most people, it's from slavery. Some people would think from slavery, that's where they would think it started. When you think of what was done to our people coming from Africa, being brought here, and once we were brought here, we were stripped of our identity. So how can you tell a group of people that we're all the same, we're not different, when you strip them of their identity? So who are you? Where do you fit in? So here you're asking people to basically accept their situation, accept the path that's been given to them. But who's to say that path is the path that you should be taking? Because if you've been stripped of your identity, and whose identity do you have? Whose example are you going by? You know, I mean, you know, if you've been stripped of your identity, what identity do you have? You're given the identity of the person who enslaved you. So what society, what system have they set up? You know, have you ever analyzed exactly what it is that they tell you you should be? Because that's what it is. You know, because if you never took the time to really look into yourself as a black person, to find out who you are, the power that's within you, where do you stand? Where do you stand in a society that wasn't meant for you, that wasn't built for you? And even like, you know, Black History Month, Martin Luther King's birthday is, and you start to see a lot of programs on TV, you know, explaining how we were treated during slavery. And we have to understand that the only images that they really show us is basically just really trying to tell a story about how bad things were. And true, those things were bad, but what about the people that actually fought? I mean, they're still showing us in a way where this is what happened to you. You know, you were slaves. This is what happened when, you know, when we decided that it was, you know, that you're free, and this is your life now. I really think that the key to building the leader, building the nation, building a strong foundation for yourself, doesn't matter what age you are, you know, for your children and for yourself, it's important that you understand the inner self. And how do we go about doing that? How do we go about identifying with the inner self? You have to understand the power within you and where you originate from. And I think that this process is necessary of going inside. Taking the time to separate yourself from the system is a very important process to develop, to improve. You have to do it because there's so many distractions. There's so many things that pulls you away from building a nation, teaching your children how to be a leader in a system that's against them. If we understand that, if we try and understand how we go about that process, I think we would be on a road to a nation.
Nutmeg and anise and cinnamon in the water. Allspice and clove blend up in the mantra. Certain knowledge people keep in their cupboard. Certain thing the whole earth with the fuck must go forward. Blood infusion of pop oil and cross culture. Knowledge with the rasta kid the whole world fi drink now. Really with the fullness of humanity fi link now. Key Jaja Isis and key Jaja Anaya. Certain place on earth right now hot like a sauna. Easy pan the temper as a bridge not fi burn. Needed for transportation into moreover. Needed for transportation into together. International relation with a few little delete. Induce the volatility of the podium speaker. Small powerful finance two sides in the war. Fighting at the earth Jaja over and over. Enter replace anytime period and character. Sight how them resembling to one another. Launching a movie role with enough B actor. Only thing them sit down in the seat a world leader. Like how them connection have nuclear reactor. Latest model of migrational disorder. Some of them are trickle down to brandish pan the corner. Grass a man a seat in a 3D runner. Hostility with hospitality for others. Still the lovers of the cuisine and the craftsman of the culture. Talking the truth is like a kid else alphabet. No one over ja almananda. Fruit when they glow like a marker highlighter. Bright with the skins of the secret and don't remember inner visibility. All from the storm cloud the earth still a feed ya. Written temperature are meter. Red now the other way the words say wonder. Infinite powers of the good earth we feed ya. Lion and the chariot and lion and malaga. Nutmeg and anise and cinnamon in the water. Allspice and clove and I blend up in the mantra. Certain things when knowledge people keep in the cupboard. Certain things the whole earth to live up must go toward. Blood infusion of pop world and cross culture. Knowledge where the rest of the whole world for drink now. Rhythm where the fullness of humanity to link now. Gi Jaja is it and Gi Jaja Anaya. Certain place of earth right now act like a sauna. Easy for the temple as a bridge now for burn. Needed for transportation into moreover. Needed for transportation into together. Humble world people, humble world culture. Jonah was mad just save the people in America. Human commonality into sooner or later. Ethics must translate into international decorum. Make sure that justice take a seat in the forum. Same thing but transportate ya via mass tanker. Same thing but concern industrialists and banker. Find trade stability, the whole world connect now. Nation need one another and for overs that. Nutmeg and anise and cinnamon in the water. Allspice and clove blend up in the mantra. Certain knowledge people keep in the cupboard. Nutmeg and anise and cinnamon in the water. Allspice and clove blend up in the mantra. Certain knowledge people keep in the cupboard. Certain thing the whole earth will live up must go forward. Blood infusion of pop world and cross culture. Knowledge where the rasta keep the whole world for drink now. Rhythm where the fullness of humanity feel link now. Gi Jaja Isis and Gi Jaja Anaya. Certain place of earth right now act like a sauna. Easy pan the temper as a bridge now fi burn wa. Needed for transportation into moreover. Needed for transportation into together. International relation with a few little delete wa. Induce the volatility of the podium speaker. Small powerful finance two sides in the war. Fighting at the earth Jaja over and over. Enter replace anytime period and character. Sight how them resembling to one another. Launching a movie all with enough be actor. Only thing them sit down in the seat a world leader. Like how them connect from a nuclear reactor. Latest model of migrational disorder. Some of them are got trickle down for brandish by the corner. Rasta man a see it in a 3D runner. Hostility with hospitality for others. Still the lovers of the cuisine and the craftsman of the culture. Talking the truth is like a Gideon's alphabet. No one over Jah Almananda. Fruit when they glow like a marker highlighter. Right with the skins of the sea vitamina. Don't I remember in a physical leader. All from the start of the earth still a feeder. Within community the Anita. Right now the other way the world's in wonder. Infinite powers of the good earth feeder. Lion and each other and lion and mother. Nutmeg and anise and cinnamon in the water. Allspice and clove and I blend up in the mantra. Certain thing when knowledge people keep in the cupboard. Certain thing the whole earth will live up must go toward. Blood infusion of pop world and cross culture. Knowledge where the rest of the whole world for drink now. Rhythm where the fullness of humanity feeling now. Gi Jaja is it and Gi Jaja Anaya. Certain place of earth right now act like a sauna. Easy for the temper as a bridge now for burn. Needed for transportation into moreover. Needed for transportation into together. Humble world people, humble world culture. Jonah was mad just save the people in America. Human commonality into sooner or later. Ethics must translate into international decorum. Make sure that justice take a seat in the forum. Same thing but transportation via master.
Because we all have to live amongst each other, but you have to be strong and have to be strong with the knowledge that you have of who you are. That you have to start with that.
Absolutely.
You have to accept the truth. And you know what else? It's easy to not try and connect with something that hasn't physically happened to you. It's hard. It's sometimes hard to connect with that.
That's true.
When you're not able to do that, you're easily convinced that a way that's not really good for you is a good way. When they have their children and their child has a question, Mommy or Daddy, why is my skin lighter? Why is my skin lighter than that person's skin? Why is his skin dark? What story is that parent going to tell their child? They're going to tell their child a history of what they did to us and how they look down on us. Whether they have chosen to express that this is how they feel, or this is what was going on in their home, or this is part of their culture, that black people were slaves, white people are superior, and they've decided to talk about these differences. This is a reality. And so, how can you say that race doesn't matter? But we're saying, not everybody.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to say that. Not everybody, but we're talking about in general. We're talking about
Absolutely.
the majority. We're talking about the culture. We're talking about, overall. So, this is the way they're brought up.
Mm-hmm.
And how are we brought up as black people? Are we brought up as black people to understand what they did to us? No, we don't teach our children what they did to us. We don't teach our children that. Because if we started to build our children back up from a place where there is nothing, from generation after generation, it's not common that our mothers and our fathers and our grandparents teach us about our identity and where we came from and who we are and being strong and being black. We're not taught that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because we're already starting at a position where we don't have an identity, where they have stripped it from us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can we evolve? How can we develop? How can we create change? How can we bring up leaders if we don't give them that foundation? Because we're already starting at a level that's lower than where we should be mentally. This is where they put us. So where do we, so you have to really look at that. You have to understand that we're dealing with something very serious here. We really have to understand, take the time out to understand what we're dealing with and why it's so important that we teach our children, and it's never too late to teach yourself, about who you are and where you come from. Because that's the key. And that's all connected with understanding the inner self.
Sure.
And that's what we need to really focus on. Understanding the differences. There is differences. You have to address them. You have to understand them.
Absolutely.
In order to progress, as a people.
Yeah.
Because if you go with the ideal that we're all the same, you're still being distracted. It seems like we when it's time to come up with a plan or a program that is supposed to be geared towards helping our people build themselves up, get them in a place where they're not gravitated towards violence and crime and things that's destructive. We can't understand why we have all these programs for nonviolence, to better yourself, and to just all these programs to better yourself, but we're not seeing any progress. Why is that? Why is it that we're not seeing this progress when we have all of these nonprofit organizations, we have all these programs, and we're still not seeing any development? Why is that? Are we truly going into building ourselves up from understanding that as a person that is deciding to be a parent, that there's some things that you need to understand so that you can teach your children as they grow, the things that they need to understand, some challenges that they're going to face in a system that's totally against them. We have to start at a point where we have these thoughts in our mind before we even decide to have children. That's what we need to do. We need to take more responsibility for our actions, more responsibility for being who we are. Because it's easy to take an easy road. You can say, well, I made it. I have my car, I have my house, I have my money, I have my girl, I have my wife. I travel the world, I donate a little money here and there. But what about the main thing? The main thing, and then also, we say that, let's come up with a solution for the poverty, the crime, the drugs. It's like we want a solution for that, but at the same time, we need to look at the condition that they put us in. How can you tell a black man that he need to get a job when you make it so difficult for him to get one? How do you do that?
Yeah.
And now he has to feed his family. How do you how do you say that?
That's very, very true.
And then you may say, okay, well, that person should have finished school. That person should have went to college. But let us even think about the point where, you're looking at this person on the street and you're wondering, like, why is it that this person don't have a job? Let's go back to
What caused that?
Exactly. Let's go back to what even caused this person to get off on the wrong track. What life has this person lived growing up? You know, what kind of obstacles have they've watched their parents go through? What kind of examples did they have from their parents? It's easy to attack the person that's on the street. But once again, there's no rule book. There's no rule book with parenting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are, as women, as men, we go based on our nature. We go based on what was instilled in us to be a parent.
Well, we know.
Right? But we have to go a little further because we're in a unique situation right now.
Absolutely.
So we have to understand that it's going to take a little more for us to raise our children in a way that we're building up leaders so that they'll be ready to face the things that they're going to have to face as they grow up. It's important that we understand that. And once again, you know, like I said, you know, parents, you know, the system is deadly. It's destructive.
It is.
For some, you know, you have parents that really try hard, you know, and really give their all to make sure that their child is on the right path. And sometimes that gravitation towards the system is much stronger than what they're hearing from that parent, you know. So we know that those struggles are there, but we cannot just give up. Clear that I'm not saying that we can't live amongst people who want to work together that are not black. You know, that's not what I'm saying, but it's important that we understand who we are. And to understand who we are, we have to understand we have to understand what happened to us. We have to understand our greatness. There's things that we need to understand about ourselves before we can even call ourselves working with others. We have to do that.
That's true.
And that's what my focus is. Our program and those who want to help,
we'll find a place for them to work with.
To help.
You know?
But it's understanding that we
figure out what we can do with them and do that.
We
you know?
need a system that we can identify with that's ours. A system that is righteous for us.
All from the storm cloud, the earth still a feed ya. Written, M-E-T-E-R meter. Read now the other way the words say wonder. Infinite powers of the good earth we feed ya. Lion a the chariot and lion a malaga. Not mechanisms and cinnamon in the water. Allspice and clove and I blend up in the mantra. Certain things when knowledge people keep in the cupboard. Certain things the whole earth we live up must go toward. Blood infusion of purple and cross culture. Knowledge where the rest of the whole world for drink now. Rhythm where the fullness of humanity feeling now. Give each other is it and give each other anaya. Certain place on earth right now act like a sauna.